Okay, so this video is going to show you guys what we did for the loft. Now, in the inspector's report, he was pointing out specifically this ledger board, and whenever we talk about the ledger board, we're talking about these boards up here that are directly affixed to the wall. You can see there's one over here with some tools hanging off of it. Apologies for the light, which continues all the way across here. There's a break here at the cable box, another board over there, and then lastly over here. The whole reason for those ledger boards, in case this isn't obvious, is what you're basically building here is a deck, effectively, which is what this storage loft basically is. So you need to have something hooked up to the wall studs here so you can have this cross beam that goes all the way across the front, which goes from that ledger board to that ledger board, so it's fixed into something that's secure. And then you've got these beams that go 90 degrees off of that all the way to the ledger board on the other wall, and that's what gives you a stable base for this OSB subfloor, which is where we've got all the storage. Now, I'll tell you, I'm not going to disagree with the inspector. When we built this, there's easily 1,000 pounds of equipment up here. What you can't really see is behind the rear tire of that bike up there. There is a ton of excess hardwood from when we installed the hardwood on the main level. Which I'm probably going to take some of it with me, but I'll leave a good amount back here. So if you guys ever have a need for one reason or another to replace any of the hardwood, if you guys damage it or break it or something, you'll have plenty of access to dip into. Okay, so that's enough jibber jabber. The question here was this ledger board specifically looked like it was pulling off of the wall, whereas the others did not. And the inspector's assessment was that, hey, these guys built it with screws and that's not really appropriate, so they need to do something a little better. Now, what I'll tell you is the screws are deck screws. My opinion is that this was absolutely over-engineered for what it is. I've had all this stuff in there for 5 years. I go up in it to get stuff out all the time. I've had multiple people up there. And it's never given me any indication that there was ever a problem. The board itself just happened to be a curved board, which, if you guys have ever done any work with lumber, every once in a while you'll get curves in the board. And when we put this together, we kind of just slapped it together out of necessity. We didn't make it an integral part of the renovation we did to the house. It was just something we realized we needed, so we kind of made do, for the most part, with what we had. So I didn't think much of it, but fair point. You probably don't want to have a board here that's bending out a couple inches, or not a couple inches, but maybe an inch or so from the wall. So what we did is we disassembled this corner. I jacked this up so it was supported, disassembled the corner, took the ledger board that was there out, went and got a new 2x10 stock, cut a new ledger board, resecured it, obviously with deck screws. You can still see I've got deck screws here into the studs, but most importantly, since the inspector called it out, we went overkill. So these are 1/2-inch lag bolts. This particular ledger board, since it was the one in question, you've got 6, 2 per stud. This thing's not going to move. I mean, maybe if you put a tank up there, maybe that'll be a problem. But this thing's not going anywhere. So you can see it's nice and flush up against the wall. You've still got these hangers here. And just in case that wasn't overkill enough, you guys probably remember the ladder. Oh, pardon me, almost tripped over a saw. So you guys remember the ladder that was here. If it wasn't obvious, we just legitimately slapped that together with the leftover boards that we had. There was no thought put into it. What we decided to do is, number one, build an actual nice ladder that wasn't just built in 30 seconds based off eyeball and everything. All your rungs are, actually cut to width, as before it was just hanging out over the sides. And your vertical posts here go from ground all the way up to the ledger board, whereas before, like I said, we were just making do with whatever leftover scraps we had, so I had like 4 sporadic boards all over the place. The good thing about this, since they go from the ground all the way up here to the board, is in addition to the ledger board, in addition to these bolts, you now have posts, basically, that are providing support from the ground all the way up. You can't really see because I've got a rung here, but you can see there. And if I can hook in here, you can see there as well. So you've got a lot of strength in this ledger board, a lot more than you had before. I'd argue before you had plenty, but hey, he's the inspector, that's his job. So hopefully you guys get a lot of use out of this loft. It's certainly allowed us to make our one-car garage, as you can see, hold an awful lot of crap, and try to keep it somewhat clean. Thanks.